Yeah. Here
For
I
you,
am.
that's just out your window, but for me, that's like halfway across the world almost.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter anymore, does it? Because Zoom is the world now, as far as most people are concerned. So,
That's true. And that's
physical
how we're
distance isn't
connecting right
really.
now is Zoom. So awesome. So tell us about yourself. What's your background? How did you come to be who you are now? That's a big question.
Oh man, that's a deep question. I don't even know the answer to that one, to be honest. I can tell you some things. So, like you said, I'm in Madrid, Spain. I've been here 10 years now. I came originally with sort of grand romantic plans to sort of travel around Europe and sort of find myself. And my first stop was Madrid. So I'm the world's worst traveler. I'm still in my original first stop after leaving the UK. But yeah, I'm from the UK. I'm from a small town just outside London. Yeah, live here now with my girlfriend Hannah and our new puppy. We just adopted a little puppy. Um,
Nice.
yes, Pepper.
What type of puppy is it? Is it an official, or is it more like what we call a mutt? Or
Yeah, it's just whatever they had. It's just whatever they had in the shelter.
sounds like my dog.
Yeah, I think she's called a teckle. I've never heard of that before.
No.
Teckle. She's like a little sausagey thing, but she's pretty cute when she's not trying to eat things that I'd rather she didn't eat. But yeah, she tries to eat my stuff on a regular basis. So,
Sounds like my
um,
kids.
your kids eat your stuff.
Some of them. So, comic books. So, fan of comic books? I hope since you're making your own comic book. Do you remember your first comic book? How old were you?
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Oh yeah. Like my first comic book was when I was really young, like I don't know, 7 or 8, like a little kid. I would read like sort of British comics that were sort of for kids. The Beano was my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very British. You've probably not
I've
heard
never
of
heard of it.
So it had like characters like Dennis the Menace.
Okay.
You know, it's different from the US Dennis the Menace. We actually had a different Dennis the Menace.
Really?
Yeah, so you had like the blonde, little
Yeah.
blonde Dennis the Menace. And we had like a Dennis the Menace with like black spiky hair.
Really?
Um, yeah,
Out of everything I've learned from doing these interviews, that might be the most shocking.
right.
Different Dennis the Menace across the pond.
Yeah, all is being revealed. Yeah, it's a different, yeah, different Dennis the Menace and sort of like like comic strips
Yeah.
in a kind of magazine sort of style. So I always sort of
Nice.
read those, and then I just kind of got into collecting them.
Mm-hmm.
I would go to like car boot sales with my mum. We would go to it's like a like what you'd call like a yard sale, I suppose, in the
Okay.
US.
Yeah.
But we sort of do like we'll take our junk to like a school
Mm-hmm.
at the weekend that when it's empty and sell our junk out of the back of our car boot, like the trunk of the
Yeah,
car.
yeah. We
Um,
I grew up outside Chicago. I'm in Atlanta now, but originally grew up outside Chicago. And trunk sales, they would do that
oh wait,
outside
okay.
Chicago. Yeah, trunk sales is what they'd call
That's a
them.
thing. Yeah, boot sale we call it.
Yeah,
So yeah, I would go there like looking for like annuals of the Beano and like trying to collect them from the '60s and stuff. So got into collecting them. Then I think as I grew up, I got hold of like some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
uh huh.
This will blow your mind because in the UK we didn't have the Ninja Turtles. We had the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. They changed it, yeah,
Again,
because we were it was considered too violent, I think, for kids to read ninjas. So we had Hero Turtles, and
nice. I think I like Hero Turtles better actually.
yeah, maybe. So yeah, I remember getting hold of that and like reading those when I was younger because I remember reading them like under the covers, like the classic
Uh huh.
naughty or past bedtime move where you'd be reading with the flashlight with the
Yep.
torch under your cover. I remember reading that. I remember reading one of those and like it had like a swear word in it in like a Ninja Turtles thing, like a curse word.
Yeah.
Ah, there's It's like, this is really cool. This is where I can get.
Yeah, before they were made into the cartoon series, I mean, still maybe in comics. I don't know. I don't read the Ninja Turtle comics anymore, but I did a little bit when I was younger. And the original comics were kind of not necessarily little kid friendly before the Nintendo, or not Nintendo, Nickelodeon series or whatever channel it came on. Yeah. That's amazing.
So yeah, I think that was when I kind of realized, hey, maybe you can keep reading these as a grown-up.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I think I went a long time without reading comics because, like, where I lived, there wasn't like a comic store, like a comic shop. Those were like in like London, and I was in like sort of the suburb of London. So yeah, you could get comics from like newsagents, like from like kiosks and stuff, like sort of magazine shops.
Yeah.
But yeah, it never quite grabbed me because it was always, like issue 21. As I'm not starting at issue 21. I want,
Right.
So there was never like enough of a select. So I'd sort of like read every now and again, like kind of whatever comics were tied into whatever was going on in like pop culture at the time. So I'd read like Simpsons comics we got in the UK, stuff like Beavis and Butthead. Maybe I would read. Remember, I got into like Street Fighter comics at one point. But yeah, as I grew up, I didn't really read much. But actually, when I came to Madrid, and when I first was here, I was an English teacher, and it's kind of obviously fun to move to another country, and it's pretty sunny here and stuff. But when I was teaching like business English, life was a little bit dull because I was teaching in like offices. I'd be spending sometimes like 4 or 5 hours just on the train going from office to office to teach like an hour. Then I have to go to the next office. So I wanted something like fun to do on the train, just to kind of make things a little less sort of grey, I suppose. I was just going from office to train to office.
Yep.
And I think I just kind of Googled like best comics of all time, and I just got like a tablet, and I started like reading like Preacher.
Yeah.
Lock and Key.
Yeah.
Why the Last Man. Just like spoiled myself of like.
Yeah, you really did. Those are all great series.
Yeah, and I was just hooked, and I just like couldn't wait to finish my like hour class to just get back and read like the next issue.
Get back on the train.
To get back on the train, to get to the next one. So yeah, that's where I sort of loved comics when I was a kid, and then like fell in love again sort of as a grown up. Nice. Grown up, I'm not grown up, of course, but as an adult at least.
So what took it from, hey, I really love reading these comic books, to, because a lot of people just really love comic books, to I'm going to make my own comic book?
Well, I suppose like my dream was always like to be a movie director. That's kind of, I grew up just loving movies, those boot sales, trunk sales I was talking about. That's where I would kind of get like VHS tapes of like old movies, and I was just really into movies from the 80s and stuff, and just that was really at the time, that was the best way to get those movies. And so I was really into movies. I wanted to be a movie director, but never did in any way. And I think it was then I kind of, when I was reading comics like Why the Last Man and stuff, and just realizing comics for me felt like the best of all worlds, where I suppose for me a comic book is like somewhere between a novel and a movie, with elements of like TV show thrown into it as well. Just kind of ticks all those boxes. And I kind of realized I would never probably be a movie director because I wouldn't want to manage that many people and have that much responsibility and have to, be responsible for that kind of a budget. And that seems like a very stressful job. But realizing you could make something like that with a small team of people, and you don't really, especially getting into indie comics, no one has to tell you, yes, you're allowed to make that. You just do it. You need to probably find some funds and some money from somewhere to do it, but not $200 million.
Right. Yeah, a heck of a lot less than making a movie.
Right. And it just sort of clicked. I think when I was reading Why the Last Man, I think it was specifically, I think that's like my favorite comic book of all time.
That's awesome.
Just like I'd love, like, I was so into it, and I just thought, my sort of dream to be a movie director was like, I want to make someone else feel the way I feel when I watch Star Wars. That if I could make just kind of one person feel that as good as I feel watching that movie. And then when I read Why the Last Man, I was like, I'd like to make someone feel like I felt reading that, just totally hooked on it, and emotional by the end of it. So yeah, that's probably the comic that made me think I want to do this.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I hear a lot of different comic books mentioned doing these interviews with different creators, and nobody's repeated once, but most of the time the comic that inspired them is one of the big two, Marvel or DC. I love that yours was Why the Last Man. I love that. I hadn't read that until recently. My friend D on FTO Nerd Talks, he recommended it to me, and so I got it in digital and have been reading it, and just it's amazing. I love it. I can't believe I went that long without reading it.
Yeah, it was really good. I don't know if it's recently released, but I saw it when I went back to London at Christmas, like an enormous
like omnibus or whatever
omnibus
of it. Yeah, it's huge.
£100
So let's break down Milky, your comic book. What's happened so far? What's next? I love it. It's such a great story. Tell us all about it. I'll let you tell us all about it. I could go on about it.
I appreciate you saying that. That's really kind. But so what's happened? I mean, it's 4 issues. The 4th one is coming very soon. Global pandemic permitting. Yeah. But yeah, hopefully we'll be launching the 4th one in August. It's 4 issues. So yeah, I don't want to give too much away, because I imagine there'll be some people that maybe would be interested in reading it from the beginning. But it's the story of a milkman, which don't really exist these days. I think they're actually having a bit of a comeback, but they don't really need a milkman these days. So he's someone that kind of, he feels like he doesn't matter, because essentially he's trying to do his job, and he's getting like notes from his clients, from his customers, to say, "Hey, don't worry, I got some from the supermarket." So just doing his job, he just feels like what he does, he doesn't really feel like he has much purpose. And the people in his community, they put him down a lot, and he's got quite low self-esteem. And he's very quiet, and he's an introvert, really. And all he really wants is to ask out his neighbor, who he's in love with. But he doesn't really have the confidence to do it, and he sort of talks to her, and he's sort of shy. And one day he wakes up and he's like, "Today I'm going to do it. I'm going to ask her out for a coffee." And just while he's on his way to her house, she's abducted by aliens, along with all the other women in the town. So that's kind of like a reverse of Why the Last Man. Actually, that's I thought that would be fun, just to see how, just to see the men bumbling along trying to solve the problem. So that's really the sort of premise of it. And he's a guy that doesn't feel like he matters, and then very suddenly the aliens happen to have a weakness to milk. So he suddenly goes from being what he thinks is the least important person in the world to the most important person, because he has a supply of milk.
All the milk. I was describing the plot of Milky to my wife, who doesn't read comics, and she was like, "That actually sounds amazing." It's like, right? It's so good. My favorite character, and I won't give too much away about this, but my favorite character, who I didn't think was going to be my favorite character, is Mrs. Boggins.
She's everyone's favorite character.
So Mrs. Boggins is one of the few women not abducted by aliens or put back. I can't remember exactly. I've read so much in between, but just a hell of a character. So
yeah.
Where did you said it? He's kind of this guy down on his luck, really, or he feels down on his luck, no self-esteem, a milkman in a milkmanless world. Where did you get the inspiration for Milky from?
I suppose from many places, really. But I think my original idea was, yeah, I wanted to tell a story about someone who felt like he didn't matter. That just really appeals to me. The idea, yeah, he's got no powers. There's nothing inherently special about him, other than who he is as a person, and is just, you know, who he is inside himself, really. And I think those have always been my favorite stories. Well, I say I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and for me, what always drew me to Star Wars was that he was a farmer. You know, my favorite bit of Star Wars is like A New Hope, when he's just on the farm looking at the suns, and there's no dialogue there, but you just know that he just feels that there's something more out there, and he just kind of feels, yeah, down on his luck for just being a farmer. And I think a lot of other stories, like, you know, Rocky, I love. He was just a thug, you know, it's just a street thug. Becomes heavyweight champion of the world, not just for throwing fists, but because of his heart and who he is. So I've always loved those stories, and similar to like Edgar Wright movies. A few people have sort of drawn comparisons between Milky and that, like Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
Just works in a shop. You know, and I think as well, Mark Millar books like Kick-Ass. You know, he decides to be a superhero. There's no real other origin story than that. He just wants to be. So yeah, I wanted to sort of do that, and I wanted to come up with a job for him, or like a sort of background for him that wouldn't matter. And a milkman really doesn't matter. It's like the most redundant job. You can always just order from online or go to the supermarket, and that's kind of that was really the beginning of the story. I suppose that's what inspired me to write a story about a milkman.
That's really great. That's really great. So the story is great in it. I love the story, but the art is also great. I have my copy here of issue 1. I have all 3 issues here. The art is fantastic, and tell us about your artist. How did you pick an artist? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so the artist is Jan Fernando. He's in the Philippines. And we met in the forum for Millar World, which is Mark Millar's not publishing company, as his company for his IP, I guess. But yeah, they have a website and a forum, and on there he was doing like a competition to create short stories for an annual he was doing. So yeah, I entered that competition, didn't win the competition, and a bunch of people that didn't win the competition were just talking in the forum and like, well, we're all here and we didn't win, so why don't we just like, you know, chat. So yeah, I was just kind of looking at people that were submitting their art, and I think I posted in like one of the threads in there to say I had this idea, this script, and if you're interested. Yeah, Jan read it, said he really liked it, but he said he wasn't I remember him saying at the time he wasn't like confident he could do a comedy script because it's got a lot of humor in it. And yeah, I didn't really, that's what I wanted. I didn't really want I didn't want it to be a kind of sort of wacky, zany sort of style that kind of leaned too much into the comedy, because, you know, I wanted it to feel a bit more like a real world. Because I wanted to explore some sort of deeper themes. You know, there's some quite there, even though it is humor, there are some dark moments in the comic book, and I wanted it to have a bit more sort of gravitas than that. And I would say his style, I felt had a sort of realism to it that would work well. Yeah, I didn't want someone that was going to try and make it funny. I wanted it to kind of I wanted the kind of characters to kind of you know, I think some of the funniest characters are characters that don't think they're funny. You know, they don't realize they're funny. So I didn't want them to look funny. I wanted them to kind of look a bit more sort of normal. So yeah, that's kind of how we met. And then I was sort of looking for a colorist, and Jan found our colorist DC Alonso on Facebook, and he was like the first guy to say, "What about this guy?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's the guy." And yeah, he's in Spain as well. He's in the north of Spain in the Basque country. And I thought, well, I can speak Spanish as well, so that's handy.
Yeah.
And yeah, then through him, we found the cover artist who's done the cover for all 4 issues.
Hold up issue 3 here.
There we go. That's that's the issue 3 cover. That's probably going to be the cover for the collected book, the trade.
It's a really great cover.
Yeah, I think that's the cover that's kind of got a bit of everything in it.
Yeah.
And Unai Ortiz de Zarate is the artist there.
Nice.
So yeah, he works with DC Alon. So they're in a sort of, they work together in a studio, working on comic projects in the north of Spain. So yeah,
that's really
still
cool.
Came together really, and I'm just really happy with all of them. I think they've done a really good job. And yeah, just amazing to see what they came up with, and just took something that was just in there while I was on the train going to work a few years ago. And,
I love it. I love it. So you've already mentioned kind of Kickstarter, there's an issue 4 coming soon, but like you said, there's a pandemic going on. Where can people sign up to get information about your Kickstarter when it does launch?
Right, yeah. So the best thing to do at the moment is if you go to milkycomic.com, you can pop your email address there, and you'll also get the first issue for free, which is something I just did when I just saw a lot of people were doing that when the pandemic sort of really first hit and the lockdowns first started. I just thought that would be just a little thing I could do just to maybe distract people, from the horrors of the real world.
Let me tell people out there, it's worth it to give your email address. I mean, come on, you give your email address for all sorts of stuff to get a free comic book, especially Milky issue 1. Go give your email address for Milky 1.
I've approached this, like a drug dealer. The first one, of course, is always free.
Get them hooked.
Now I've got that sweet email address.
I love it. So Milky's going to wrap up with issue 4 when that's done. What comes next for you after Milky is done?
Sleep.
Lots of sleep.
I love sleep. I don't know. I've got a lot of ideas for other comics, but I don't know. I'm going to take a little break because I've got a day job, and it's been a lot of just kind of waking up early and finding an hour here or there to work on it, because in the world of indie comics you write it, but I also letter it as well. That's been quite time consuming, and you do the marketing for it, do the Kickstarters, run the Kickstarters, create the Kickstarter videos. I make the posters as well. I'm not a smart man, so all this stuff takes me a lot of time when I could be sleeping. I'm going to take a little break, and then I think I'll do another one. I've got lots of ideas. They're all kind of a similar vein, really. I think I'd like to do a horror one next.
Nice.
I've got an idea for a horror story, which is similar, just kind of an average kind of guy, and it's kind of down on his luck, and it's kind of, this particular story is based on like a kind of school reunion. It's sort of just kind of exploring regrets of life and decisions you've made and that kind of thing, and that's always what kind of interests me. I think really just very real world, real people problems, and then like throwing that into like crazy sci-fi or horror settings. So
I love it. Well, I can't wait to see what comes next for you down the road. I didn't know you lettered the books, and I always feel that people don't realize how underappreciated art lettering is. Lettering can make or break a book sometimes, I think. So good job on that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah,
You're welcome.
I do like it. I find the lettering to be, it's quite sort of therapeutic a little bit. I find it's kind of getting down into the granular, moving the letters around, and I think for a writer, it's something I'd recommend, because I've changed a lot of the book, a lot of the story, when I've kind of realized actually that maybe with the art doesn't quite go the way I wanted it to go. I think that character doesn't. I don't feel like he's saying that. I feel like he's maybe would say something else, and I've changed a lot of the lettering as I've gone, and I loved having that freedom to do that. would hate to have a letter where I'm like, hey, could you change that for the 15th time? And
that is very true. Tyrone Jackson of Sovereign Comics also letters all his own books, and I think he would totally agree with you on all that. The changing and just not having to go back and forth with somebody else is probably a great thing.
But it's also a problem because you sort of don't have to make a decision. Like you can always keep messing with it.
Right. So maybe never fully done.
Yeah.
So any other indie titles you're following right now?
So yeah, I mean, I've backed a bunch on Kickstarter, and that's, I think, one of the first things I'll do when I finish this one, because I haven't read even a fraction of what I've backed. But I'll drop a few names of some stuff. I'm just looking at my list here of the stuff that I've backed. Miskatonic High is one.
Yeah.
If that's how you pronounce it, Miskatonic High. Yeah, he's a really good dude as well. Mike Shea, we've chatted a lot and sort of traded ideas and stuff about how to run Kickstarters. So yeah, I'm looking for. I think I've got the last one of that. So that's 6 or 7, I think. He just keeps cranking these out, and he's had a lot of success online. So he's doing a great job. What else have we got here? Crescent City Monsters. I really like the look of.
Yeah, Dream Fury Comics, I think. Yeah,
that's
a great one.
Yeah, he's a really pleasant guy as well. Newton is his name.
Yep.
So he's been really supportive, and I remember he sent me a nice message. So I'm looking forward to looking at that one. That's a really good. It's black and white, I think.
Yep.
The art and the sort of the imagination of that looks really cool. Who else would be? Frank at Home on the Farm. Do you read that?
No.
He's also a British guy that happens to live in Spain.
Really?
Jordan is his name. He lives in Granada, and we happen to have a friend in common. And I saw his book before I even knew that we had this friend in common. And it's a really weird sort of story. It's kind of maybe a bit like David Lynchy, just about a guy that comes back from the war, and he's kind of going through some sort of post-traumatic stress, and sort of I think he's kind of seeing things, but is he seeing things? And a story like that. So that was really fun. So there's just got like a stack of books to read. Which I'm really looking forward to. You'd think with the lockdown I'd have found the time, but
right?
I found I was busier in lockdown somehow.
Me too. So Milky 4 wraps up. The magical opportunity presents itself that you could do a crossover between Milky and any other indie title. What would it be?
I know the answer to that one.
Yeah.
I know the answer to that question. If you there's a book called Milford Green. Have you read that?
No, but I've heard of it.
Another British one by Samuel London.
Okay.
He does a podcast. He had me on his podcast. It's called Comics for the Apocalypse. You call it Comics for the Apocalypse. The premise of the podcast is like, what comics would you take into the apocalypse?
I love that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. But it's like his book is so similar to Milky that we should probably both get lawyers. It's but it's set in like Victorian England, and it's about a kind of bookish guy caught up in the middle of an alien invasion, and a lot of the characters are the same. He's got like a sort of love interest, and then there's this sort of like chauvinistic guy that's like causing problems, and he kind of sides with the aliens. And then there's like an old person that's kind of the mentor. It's very similar characters, but different.
Yeah, maybe you should both get lawyers. Maybe you're right.
I don't think so, because he's a very pleasant guy, so I don't think it's necessary. But, I feel like there'd be a lot of scope for a crossover there.
Yeah.
Check it out. I think he's done that. I think he did Beyond Milford Green. I think he did another one. I don't want to read that one in case it like subconsciously inspires me. And then he'll really be sending the lawyers to me.
That's hilarious. So I know that a lot of creators don't feel successful in the indie comic world, but I feel like you've been successful. Your Kickstarters have been funded. You got your books out there across the globe. So as a success within the indie comic sphere, what advice would you give somebody else who's wanting to get into indie comics?
Well, I'll counter your very kind compliment with my advice, which is actually the first one I did failed. The first campaign I did not succeed because I didn't know what I was doing at all. But I just thought I'll just jump in with both feet and sort of see what happens. I think I made a lot of mistakes in terms of probably not doing enough research, not looking at enough campaigns, not reading enough indie comic books, what other people were doing. Not really pricing it properly, not having probably interesting enough rewards. The pages, I don't think I did a video the first time because I was nervous to do a video. I wasn't prepared. I've done a lot of things in my life. Like I work in sort of marketing, content marketing as well. I've always had to do some sort of public speaking. I've dabbled in stand-up comedy even. So it's not like I'm not especially shy, but like this was essentially the thing I wanted to do well. And I wasn't quite prepared to put myself behind it 100% that first time. Because what if it failed and everyone was like, shut up, Josh, no one wants to read a stupid comic book. I was more nervous, I guess, about it failing or people just thinking it was dumb. So I suppose put yourself behind it. Don't be afraid to do that, and don't be afraid to fail. You can't, I don't think you can succeed really without failing. You're gonna make some mistakes, you're gonna get some things wrong. You might feel, foolish or embarrassed at some point, but be foolish. Don't be afraid to say you don't know. Ask people for help. Try it, see what happens. Because I think that is the great thing I think about indie comics and the way the world is going right now. No one had permission. No one needed to give you, Brett, permission to have a talk show about comic books. Just did it.
Right.
There was no opportunity going. There was no job posted for it. You just done it, and you thought to yourself, maybe there's some people like me that would dig that also. So don't perhaps, and just essentially just do it and essentially forge your own path. Learn as much as you can. You're going to need to build an audience, and maybe you might look at perhaps mainstream comics or more like mainstream indie comics and think, I don't think I'm going to be. I don't think I've got the kind of thing that mainstream people want, but I think there'll always be an audience for you, and it doesn't matter if it's small. Sometimes it's much, much better, to be telling a story that you think people want to hear. If it's your story and it's important to you, just get on with it. Just get on with it.
I love that. Great advice. And that is, if there's one really consistent theme about everybody that I've interviewed, it's that they failed the first or second or third time before they got it right. And so you're absolutely right. Don't be afraid to fail. That's great advice. Joshua, where can people find Milky at if they want to get more? You've already said it once, but let's tell them again.
So just to reiterate, it's Milky, Milky, is milkycomic.com is going to be the best place right now. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I post infrequently, not as frequently as I should. I post a bit more when there's a campaign, but I want something from people. Post a little bit more than normally. I'm Twitter not so much. I don't think I'm angry enough to be on Twitter.
I've noticed that about Twitter. Yeah, it's a much more angry stomping ground. Yeah. Sorry, Twitter. We are live on Twitter right now, so sorry, Twitter.
Sorry, Twitter. Sorry. Yeah. Wow, just incurred.
I know.
I do use it, and I do chat on there. Backtracking now and then. But I'm probably more consistent on Instagram, Facebook, and the Kickstarter platform. I like posting those updates on there as well. That's where you can find me if you want to check out. Like I said, the first issue is free. Got nothing to lose. The email address. I don't even send a mailing list. I just send like a sort of, hey, there's a Kickstarter a couple of times. There's nothing to lose.
Great. Well, like I said before, it is worth exchanging your email address for that free #1, everybody. Go over to milkycomic.com and sign up. Get that free issue #1 and get in the loop when Milky 4 Kickstarter launches. Joshua, thank you so much for being here today, taking the time. I truly love your books, and this is the reason I do interviews, is just mostly so I get to meet really cool people who I admire. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the Milky story, and I can't wait for issue 4, man.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. I love what you're doing on Instagram. I love your setup there. That's like a really fun place. Is that where you work? That's amazing.
Yeah, this is where I get to work while we're working from home right now. This is actually, it looks really cool. This is actually just my basement foyer. So I've just set it up in a fun way.
Yeah, super fun. Yeah, love it.
All right. Talk to you later.
Carry on. See